A Triumph of Surgery by James Herriot. I was really worried about Tricky this time. I had pulled up my car when I saw him in the street with his mistress, and I was shocked at his appearance. He had become hugely fat, like a bloated sausage with a leg at each corner. His eyes, bloodshot and rheumy, stared straight ahead, and his tongue lolled from his jaws. Mrs. Pumphrey hastened to explain. He was so listless, Mr. Herriot. He seemed to have no energy. I thought he must be suffering from malnutrition. So I have been giving him some little extras between meals to build him up, some malt and cod liver oil and a bowl of Horlicks at night to make him sleep. Nothing much really. And did you cut down on the sweet things as I told you? Oh, I did for a bit, but he seemed to be so weak I had to relent. He does love cream cakes and chocolates, so I can't bear to refuse him. I looked down again at the little dog. That was the trouble. Tricky's only fault was greed. He had never been known to refuse food. He would tackle a meal at any hour of the day or night. And I wondered about all the things Mrs. Pumphrey hadn't mentioned. Are you giving him plenty of exercise? Well, he has his little walks with me, as you can see, but Hodgkin, the gardener, has been down with lumbago, so there has been no ring throwing lately. I try to sound severe. Now, I really mean this. If you don't cut his food right down and give him more exercise, he is going to be really ill. You must harden your heart and keep him on a very strict diet. Mrs. Pumphrey wrung her hands. Oh, I will, Mr. Herriot. I'm sure you are right, but it is so difficult, so very difficult. She set off, head down, along the road, as if determined to put on the new regime into practice immediately. I watched their progress with growing concern. Tricky was trottering along in his little tweed coat. He had a whole wardrobe of these coats for the cold weather and the raincoat for the wet days. He struggled on, drooping in his harness. I thought it wouldn't be long before I heard from Mrs. Pumphrey. The expected call came within a few days. Mrs. Pumphrey was distraught. Tricky would eat nothing, refused even his favorite dishes, and besides, he had bouts of vomiting. He spent all his time lying on a rug, panting, didn't want to go for walks, didn't want to do anything. I had made my plans in advance. The only way was to get Tricky out of the house for a period. I suggested that he be hospitalized for about a fortnight to be kept under observation. The poor lady almost swooned. I was sure he would pine and die if he did not see her every day. But I took a firm line. Tricky was very ill, and this was the only way to save him. In fact, I thought it best to take him without delay, and followed by Mrs. Pumphrey's wailings, I marched out to the car carrying the little dog wrapped in a blanket. The entire staff was roused, and maids rushed in and out, bringing his day bed, his night bed, favorite cushions, toys and rubber rings, breakfast bowl, lunch bowl, supper bowl. Realizing that my car would never hold all that stuff, I started to drive away. As I moved off, Mrs. Pumphrey, with a despairing cry, threw an armful of the little coats through the window. I looked in the mirror before I turned the corner of the drive. Everybody was in tears. I don't think that's a very good way to take care of a pet. What do you think? We'll discuss more about that a little later, but for now, let's understand this part of the story in detail. So we read that Tricky was a small dog spoiled by his mistress, Mrs. Pumphrey. She pampered the dog, overfeeding him all the time. She gave him food rich in fats And obviously, Tricky became greedy and never refused food anytime. Moreover, he liked cream cakes and biscuits very much. Mrs. Pumphrey, to add on to everything, used to give him cod liver oil, Horlicks. She also gave him wine to drink. What do I say? The dog had a lavish life, more lavish than most of us. But sadly, all of this made Tricky fat and he bloated like a sausage. And due to the lack of exercise, he became really lazy. He became uninterested in things. All day he simply lay on the rug. When the veterinary doctor saw the dog's bloodshot eyes and his tongue lolled from his jaws, he knew that he was seriously ill. He strongly advised Mrs. Pumphrey to cut down on his food and give him more exercise. But deep in his mind, the doctor knew that the dog would return soon. And he did. This time in a worse condition than before. Tricky was suffering because of overeating, so much that he had already made his plans. He took a firm decision and he said that Tricky must be admitted into hospital just for a fortnight. This suggestion made Mrs. Pumphrey obviously very sad. She thought that Tricky would not even live a single day without seeing her. But the doctor wrapped him in a blanket. He took him out of the house, put him in his car, and as the doctor took Tricky away, the departure was very sad and very pathetic. Mrs. Pumphrey aroused the entire house. The maids were rushing to put Tricky's belongings into the car, and soon the doctor took Tricky away in his car for the surgery. What kind of surgery do you think it would be? Liposuction? I suppose so, right? With that, we've come to the end of this video. But we still have a lot more to read and understand about the story. So stay tuned and we'll be back very shortly. See you soon. Tutormate. For more amazing video lectures, download the free app on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store.